North Carolina's landscape holds more than beauty. It hides secrets from a distant past. From the vanished colony of Roanoke to glowing mountain lights, strange carvings, and ancient earthworks, every corner of the state whispers a mystery. Beneath its peaceful forests and old towns lie stories of lost civilizations, unexplained phenomena, and legends that refuse to fade. The ancient earthworks of Town Creek. If you ever find yourself driving through the quiet countryside of Montgomery County, North Carolina, you might pass a stretch of green field and hardly notice the low earthen rise in the distance. But that mound, standing silent under the wide Carolina sky, holds stories that reach back nearly 1,000 years. This is Town Creek, an ancient ceremonial earthwork built by the Mississippian people, whose culture thrived long before European settlers arrived. What survives today isn't just an archaeological site. It's a glimpse into a world that once pulsed with ritual, community, and mystery. Archaeologists believe the mound and surrounding village were built around the year 1000. Back then, the PD River Valley looked very different. It was covered in thick forest, and the river meandered wide and slow through the bottomlands. The people who lived here were part of what we now call the PD culture, an offshoot of the broader Mississippian tradition that stretched from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. They built towns organized around plazas and mounds, where religion, trade, and politics mixed into one seamless way of life. Town Creek's main feature is the flat-topped mound itself. It rises about 10 feet high and covers roughly an acre. On top of it once stood a temple or council house built of wood and clay, where leaders or priests likely gathered to perform rituals. Around the mound stretched a large open plaza, ringed by houses made of wattle and daub, woven sticks plastered with mud. It must have been a busy place. Smoke from hearth fires rising into the sky, people grinding corn, children running between huts, and the steady rhythm of life moving with the seasons. But what makes Town Creek truly mysterious is why it was built and what exactly went on there. Excavations have revealed traces of fire pits, ceremonial objects, and burials, all hinting at a deep spiritual purpose. Some artifacts, shell beads, stone tools, carved effigies, suggest that the people here were not isolated. They traded with distant groups along the rivers that linked the southeastern tribes. Items found at Town Creek have connections as far away as the Gulf Coast and the Midwest. Archaeologists have uncovered the layout of several temples that once stood atop the mound. Each seems to have been carefully dismantled and rebuilt over time, layer by layer, as if renewing a sacred tradition. Some think this cycle of building and burning symbolized death and rebirth, the constant renewal of spiritual power. Others suggest it reflected the life of a leader or priest. When one died, his temple was burned and rebuilt for the next. Still, no one knows the exact meaning of these ceremonies. The people who created them left no written records, only patterns in the earth and fragments of pottery to speak for them. Even their name, PD, was given later by others. Whatever they called themselves, their connection to this landscape ran deep. Every mound, every post hole, every shard of clay seems to hum with a sense of purpose we can only guess at. By the 1300s, something began to change. The mound was no longer expanded, and the village gradually emptied out. The reasons are unclear. It could have been disease, war, shifts in trade routes, or environmental change. Some scholars think the spiritual center of life may have moved elsewhere, or that the people blended into other nearby tribes. What's left behind is the stillness of the place itself, a silence that has lasted for centuries. Town Creek came back into focus in the early 20th century, when local farmers began finding unusual artifacts in their fields. Word spread, and in the 1930s, archaeologists from the University of North Carolina began the first serious excavations. What they found astonished them. Beneath the surface lay the remains of a planned community, with post holes forming precise geometric patterns, evidence of a sophisticated society that understood design, astronomy, and ceremony. Some of the discoveries still puzzle researchers. In one burial, a person was found laid out with elaborate shell ornaments and polished stones, while others were buried in simple pits nearby. Was this a priest, a leader, or perhaps someone honored for another reason? Another area revealed circular arrangements of posts, possibly used for celestial observation. Some believe the people of Town Creek tracked the movement of the sun and moon, aligning their rituals with the changing seasons. Today, standing there, it's easy to imagine how it once felt to gather at the mound during a solstice or harvest ceremony. The flicker of firelight, the sound of drums, the scent of burning herbs carried by the wind. For the people who lived here, the boundary between the physical and spiritual world wasn't rigid. It was something they crossed through song, dance, and ritual. Even now, many visitors say there's a strange calm that hangs over the site. The air feels heavier, quieter, as if the land itself remembers. The mound isn't high, but it has a presence, a sense of watchfulness. You can almost hear echoes of footsteps across the plaza, the low murmur of voices long gone. Town Creek has become one of the few reconstructed Mississippian sites open to the public in North Carolina. The mound has been carefully restored based on archaeological evidence, and a reconstructed temple and village give visitors a sense of how it might have looked centuries ago. School groups come here to learn about pre-colonial history, and researchers still study the soil for new clues. Yet even with decades of work, the full story of Town Creek remains incomplete. Some archaeologists suggest the mound was more than a local center. It might have been part of a network of ceremonial sites that dotted the southeast. If that's true, then Town Creek was one node in a much larger spiritual landscape, connecting different peoples through shared beliefs and rituals. Others think the site's design might encode astronomical or mythological meanings we no longer understand. The alignment of posts and structures hints at knowledge of celestial cycles, like those seen at other ancient earthworks across the continent. What's also striking is how quickly nature tried to reclaim it once the people left. Over the centuries, the wooden structures rotted away, the mound eroded, and the fields swallowed the traces of homes. It wasn't until archaeologists carefully peeled back the soil that the outlines of their world re-emerged. Each discovery, a post hole here, a layer of ash there, felt like a conversation across time. Visiting today, it's hard not to feel a mix of awe and sadness. The beauty of the site is in its simplicity: a grassy rise, a few reconstructed huts, the distant sound of wind through the trees. There are no grand stone monuments or towering statues here, yet the sense of human effort is undeniable. These people moved thousands of basketloads of earth by hand, organized labor, built temples, and sustained a culture that thrived for centuries, all without the tools or written records we depend on. You can walk along the paths, follow the wooden fences outlining the old village, and imagine the daily rhythm of life here. The sun would rise over the river, shining across the mound and the plaza where markets and ceremonies were held. At night, the same stars we see today would have guided their stories and rituals. It's humbling to realize how much they knew of the world around them, how deeply they read the sky and the land. Today, Town Creek is protected as a state historic site, open to visitors who want to connect with a part of America's past that predates written history. The caretakers maintain it with quiet respect, allowing the grass to grow and the landscape to speak for itself. There's a small museum nearby with pottery, tools, and carved figures, each piece whispering something of the people who once lived here. But for all we've learned, the biggest questions remain unanswered. Why did they build here? What did the rituals mean? And what happened to them in the end? Town Creek keeps those secrets close, buried beneath layers of earth and time. Standing on the mound at sunset when the sky glows orange and gold, it's easy to believe that the spirits of the PD people still linger, guarding their sacred place, patient as ever, waiting for us to understand. The ghost ship Carroll A. Deering. If you travel down the North Carolina coast where the Atlantic stretches wide and restless, you'll come across a stretch of sea locals call the Graveyard of the Atlantic. It's a haunting name, and for good reason. Over the centuries, thousands of ships have met their end on these shifting sands and unpredictable waters. But one of those wrecks stands apart from the rest, not just because of how it happened, but because of what was found and what wasn't. That ship was the Carroll A. Deering. The Deering was a 5-masted schooner, a beautiful tall ship built for cargo, with towering sails and a sleek wooden frame. She was launched in 1919 from Bath, Maine, and was considered a fine example of American shipbuilding. By 1921, she was making routine runs between the East Coast and South America. Nothing about her story seemed extraordinary until her final voyage. In late August of 1920, the Carroll A. Deering set sail from Norfolk, Virginia, bound for Rio de Janeiro with a load of coal. Her captain, William Merritt, was an experienced seaman, and his son served as first mate, but not long into the trip, Merritt fell ill and had to leave the ship. Another captain, W.B. Wormel, an older man known for his strict discipline, took command. The crew, a mix of seasoned sailors and newcomers, didn't seem to get along well with him. Tension simmered beneath the surface. The ship reached Rio safely, unloaded her cargo, and prepared to return home. Wormel met with other captains there, complaining openly about his crew's behavior. They were unruly, he said. Some didn't respect his authority. Still, in December 1920, the Deering left South America and began her long journey north along the Atlantic coast. That would be the last confirmed voyage of the Carroll A. Deering under her full crew. Weeks later, on January 29, 1921, a lightship keeper stationed off Cape Lookout, North Carolina, reported seeing the schooner passing by. A man on board shouted through a megaphone that the ship had lost her anchors and needed help. Oddly, that man didn't seem to be the captain. He was a red-haired crew member, someone the keeper didn't recognize as an officer. The captain himself was nowhere in sight. The next day, a heavy storm swept across the coast. When the skies finally cleared, the Carroll A. Deering was spotted again, but this time, she was wrecked on the treacherous Diamond Shoals near Cape Hatteras. That stretch of shifting sandbars had claimed countless ships, but this wreck was like none other. When rescuers reached the vessel, they found it completely abandoned. The sails were still set. The lifeboats were gone. The galley looked as if a meal had been prepared but never eaten. The ship's logbook, navigational equipment, and personal belongings were missing. Even the captain's parrot cage stood empty. It was as though the entire crew had simply vanished into thin air. Investigators combed through what was left, searching for signs of violence, mutiny, or foul play, but nothing made sense. There were no bodies, no distress signals, and no evidence of a struggle. Only one cryptic clue remained: a few footprints in the sand leading away from the wreck and then disappearing into the surf. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Newspapers dubbed the Carroll A. Deering the ghost ship of the Outer Banks. People compared it to the Mary Celeste, another infamous ship found adrift with no crew decades earlier. Locals along the coast whispered about curses, pirates, and sea monsters. Some even tied the disappearance to the Bermuda Triangle, though the wreck lay far north of it. The U.S. government launched one of the largest maritime investigations of its time. The FBI, Coast Guard, and even the Department of Commerce got involved. They looked into theories ranging from mutiny to piracy, to the possibility of Prohibition-era rum runners hijacking the ship. Some believed the crew might have turned against Captain Wormel. After all, he was known to be demanding, and he'd already voiced his frustrations about them in Rio. If the men mutinied, they might have killed the captain and officers, then abandoned ship after running aground, but there were problems with that theory. The wreck showed no blood, no damage that suggested a fight. Others speculated the ship had been seized by pirates or revolutionaries operating near the Caribbean. Around that time, American vessels had been attacked by bands of radicals known as the Bolos, who targeted ships for supplies. Yet again, no sign of theft or conflict was found. Another theory claimed the ship had been caught in a violent storm, forcing the crew to abandon it. But if they'd launched lifeboats, where did they go? No bodies ever washed ashore, and the nearby coastline was well patrolled. Some suggested the crew may have been rescued by another passing vessel, but if that happened, why did no one ever report it? As weeks turned to months, the mystery only deepened. The ship was deemed too damaged to recover, so authorities set her ablaze to clear the wreck. Watching the flames consume that proud schooner must have been a haunting sight. With her destruction, any final clues about what really happened were lost to the sea. Even today, a century later, the mystery of the Carroll A. Deering remains unsolved. Over time, it's become a kind of maritime legend, part ghost story, part cautionary tale. Some claim that on certain foggy nights, lights can still be seen near Diamond Shoals, flickering like lanterns from an invisible ship. Fishermen talk of strange echoes on their radios, or the faint sound of a bell tolling across the waves, long after the real ship was gone. What makes this story linger is that sense of total disappearance. An entire crew of men gone without a trace. No final message, no wreckage beyond the hull, no survivors to tell their side. Just a perfectly intact ship, grounded in the sand, waiting to be found. It's the kind of mystery that sticks in your mind, not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. Over the years, historians and maritime researchers have revisited the case, sifting through records and eyewitness reports. Some modern theories suggest a simpler answer, that the crew ran aground during the storm and abandoned ship to save themselves, only to be lost at sea. But even that explanation doesn't account for the missing logbook, or why the captain's quarters were left so neatly, as if they'd expected to return. For locals in the Outer Banks, the story feels personal. The Carroll A. Deering is woven into their folklore, alongside tales of ghost lights, phantom ships, and cursed waters. The graveyard of the Atlantic Museum in Hatteras still displays pieces of her recovered wreck, fragments of wood bleached by time, silent witnesses to whatever happened out there. Standing on the beaches near Cape Hatteras today, you can look out across the water and imagine what that morning must have been like in 1921. The wreck lying tilted on the shoals, sails flapping in the wind. empty lifeboat davits creaking with the tide. It must have been both beautiful and deeply unsettling. The sea was calm by then, the storm long gone, yet the ship looked alive like it had been left in mid-motion. There's something about the ocean that resists explanation. It hides what it takes. The Carroll A. Deering may have been just one of many ships lost to those waters, but its story stands out because it reminds us how fragile human certainty really is. A perfectly capable ship, a professional crew, and still gone. When the wind picks up along the Carolina coast and the waves crash hard against the shore, locals say you can almost hear the creak of rigging and the faint cry of sailors calling across the dark water. Whether it's imagination or something else, no one really knows. But one thing's for sure, the mystery of the Carroll A. Deering hasn't faded with time. It still drifts, quietly, somewhere between history and legend, one more ghost among the endless waves of the Atlantic. The secret tunnels of Old Salem. In the heart of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, there's a quiet old district where brick sidewalks and tidy houses seem frozen in time. The place is called Old Salem, a restored 18th century Moravian settlement known for its charming architecture, cobblestone streets, and strong sense of history. Tourists come here for the bakeries, the craft shops, and the feeling of stepping into another century. But beneath those peaceful streets, some say, lies something much stranger, a network of hidden tunnels that may hold secrets the town has never fully revealed. The Moravians who founded Salem in the 1700s were a deeply spiritual and industrious people. They came from Central Europe, bringing with them traditions of community, faith, and craftsmanship. Everything about their town was carefully planned. Streets were laid out with precision, homes were built from brick and stone, and each building had a specific purpose. Bakeries, workshops, and churches forming the heart of a close-knit settlement. On the surface, it was a model town, quiet, orderly, and faithful. But over the years, stories began to spread about what lay below. Locals whispered about tunnels running beneath the streets, secret passageways connecting churches, homes, and burial grounds. Some said they were used during the Revolutionary War to move supplies or hide valuables. Others believed they had a more spiritual purpose, linking sacred spaces underground in ways that reflected the Moravians' mysterious rituals of death and resurrection. What gives these rumors weight is that a few of the tunnels are real. Archaeologists and workers restoring Old Salem have occasionally stumbled upon bricked corridors or hollowed-out sections beneath old buildings. Most are small, narrow, and crudely built, hardly large enough for people to walk through comfortably. But they exist, and that alone keeps curiosity alive. The most famous stories center around God's Acre, the Moravian cemetery. The Moravians believed deeply in equality, even in death, and buried their dead in identical flat stones arranged in perfect rows. Some say tunnels once connected the cemetery to the nearby church, allowing the brethren to move during funerals unseen, or perhaps to prepare bodies for burial in a ritual space hidden from outsiders. It's a chilling image, men walking by lamplight beneath the town, their hymns echoing through the dirt corridors. Other stories claim there were escape tunnels dug during the early 1800s, possibly used by enslaved people seeking freedom. Though Old Salem was a religious community that disapproved of slavery, it was still surrounded by plantations that depended on it. Some historians have suggested that sympathetic Moravians may have secretly helped fugitives hide or move through the area under cover of night. If true, those tunnels could have been part of a quiet underground resistance. Still, there's another side to the legend. Some believe the tunnels were simply practical, used for drainage, storage, or even cooling food during the hot summers. The Moravians were known for their efficiency, and they built underground cellars and passageways beneath their larger structures. Over time, as memory faded and entrances were sealed, those ordinary features could easily have been mistaken for something more mysterious. But the tales persist because they fit the atmosphere of the place. Old Salem has an almost haunting stillness after dark. When the tourists leave and the gas lamps flicker along the brick paths, it's easy to imagine footsteps echoing below your own. Workers who've spent long hours in the historic buildings sometimes report strange drafts rising from the floors or hollow echoes beneath their feet. One caretaker claimed to have found a sealed doorway under a workshop that led to a narrow tunnel, but it ended abruptly in a wall of dirt. No one could explain why it was built. Even in daylight, there's something enigmatic about the town's layout. Some of the earliest maps of Salem show small unmarked spaces between buildings, odd gaps that don't line up with modern foundations. When compared with today's landscape, a few of those old paths lead directly toward the cemetery or the creek. Are they evidence of lost passageways, or simply errors made by early surveyors? No one can say for sure. In the 1960s, during one round of restoration work, a construction crew reportedly unearthed part of an underground chamber near the Single Brothers' house, one of Salem's oldest buildings. It was described as a low stone-lined tunnel, partly collapsed, that extended several feet before vanishing into packed soil. The find was quietly reburied after being documented. The official explanation was that it was a storage root cellar, but for many locals that didn't sit right. Why dig a root cellar that led nowhere? It's not hard to see why the story of hidden tunnels holds such fascination. Salem was a community built on privacy and discipline. The Moravians were kind, but they kept their inner life separate from outsiders. They had secret religious ceremonies, private burial rites, and strong rules about who could attend certain gatherings. To those looking in from the outside, that kind of secrecy could easily feed imaginations. And there's one more layer to the mystery: energy. Visitors often talk about the strange feeling of calm mixed with unease that settles over Old Salem, especially near the older buildings. Paranormal investigators have picked up cold spots, whispers, and faint voices during their late-night visits. They say the tunnels, if they truly crisscross beneath the town, might act like conduits for spiritual energy, channeling echoes of the past. Some locals shrug it off. Others won't walk alone through certain streets after dark. Whether or not those stories are true, the sense of mystery has become part of Salem's identity. The town's historians tread carefully. They acknowledge a few verified underground spaces, but avoid confirming the wilder rumors. Some believe that if all the tunnels were truly mapped, they might reveal patterns that tell us more about how the Moravians lived and what they feared. Others think it's better to leave some questions unanswered, to let the town keep its quiet dignity. If you visit today, you can walk along Main Street and stop by the old tavern, the Single Brothers' house, and the Winkler Bakery, where the smell of fresh bread still drifts into the street. Each of these places has cellars or basements that hint at something deeper. A few guides will tell you, in hushed tones, about strange walls discovered behind old doors or bricks that seem newer than the ones around them, suggesting repairs that might conceal something beneath. At night, when the air cools and the sounds of the city fade, you can stand by the cemetery gate and feel the weight of centuries around you. The wind moves through the trees, and sometimes it feels like it's rising from below. People have reported hearing the faint sound of footsteps under the ground, steady, rhythmic, as if someone were still walking those old tunnels, keeping watch. Old Salem is both history and legend woven together. The houses are real, the artifacts are preserved, but the stories, the whispers of what lies below, make the place breathe in a different way. Whether the tunnels were meant for faith, safety, or secrecy, they remind us that even the most peaceful places often have layers hidden beneath them, and maybe that's why the mystery endures. Not because anyone expects to find a vast labyrinth under the town, but because it's comforting, in a strange way, to imagine that history still moves quietly below our feet, alive, unseen, and waiting to be rediscovered. The lost town beneath Fontana Lake. Deep in the Great Smoky Mountains of western North Carolina lies Fontana Lake, a vast blue stretch of water surrounded by dense forests and misty hills. It's peaceful now, the kind of place where fishermen cast lines from quiet docks and families rent cabins for the summer. But what few visitors realize is that beneath those still waters lies an entire world that vanished. There was once a town here. Roads, homes, churches, even cemeteries, all swallowed up when the lake was created. Locals still call it the lost town beneath Fontana Lake. Before the lake existed, this region was home to dozens of small mountain communities. They had names like Judson, Proctor, and Hazel Creek, humble, tight-knit places where families had lived for generations. The people there farmed the land, cut timber, mined for copper, and built their lives along the Little Tennessee River. Life was hard but steady, and the valley carried the rhythm of mountain life: church bells on Sundays, smoke rising from chimneys in winter, and kids walking dirt roads to one-room schools. Everything changed in the early 1940s. The United States was deep in World War II, and the government needed resources to power its war industries. The Tennessee Valley Authority, or TVA, had been building dams across the South to produce hydroelectric power. Fontana Dam was one of the biggest projects yet, a massive concrete wall designed to create electricity for the aluminum plants that built fighter planes and weapons. To build it, thousands of acres of land had to be flooded. That meant the families who lived in the valley would have to leave. One by one, government agents went door to door with maps and papers, offering compensation for land that had been in families for over a century. Most people didn't have much choice. Some resisted at first, but the water was coming whether they wanted it or not. By 1944, the dam was complete, and the valley began to fill. As the water rose, the old roads disappeared. Houses were dismantled or burned. The schoolhouses and churches were torn down. Families gathered their belongings, said goodbye to their ancestors' graves, and moved to higher ground. But not everything could be moved. Many cemeteries were relocated, but some graves remain beneath the lake to this day, sealed in silence. For many of those displaced families, it was a heartbreak that never faded. They had given up more than land, they'd lost their sense of home. After the war, the government promised to rebuild a new road that would allow former residents to visit their old family cemeteries around the lake's edge. It was called the Road to Nowhere. Construction began but never finished. The road ends abruptly in a tunnel carved through the mountain, its pavement fading into dirt and forest. That tunnel has become one of the eeriest places in the Smokies. It's long, dark, and covered in graffiti, echoing with every step you take. Locals say if you walk through it at night, you can hear the faint sounds of voices, old songs maybe, or the creak of wagon wheels. Some believe the spirits of those who once lived in the valley still wander near their old homes, unable to rest beneath the water. Fontana Lake itself has an uneasy beauty. It stretches for miles between steep ridges, the water dark and deep. When the levels drop in late summer, old roads and foundations sometimes reappear. A crumbled wall here, the edge of a bridge there. It's like the lake exhales for a moment and reveals a ghost of what once was. Kayakers have reported seeing faint shapes beneath the surface, stone chimneys, bits of metal, outlines of streets. They say on clear days, if the sun hits the water just right, you can see the remains of Proctor's Old Town Square deep below. Proctor was the largest of the towns lost under Fontana. Before the flood, it was a lively logging community with hundreds of residents, a school, and a hotel. Today, what's left of it can only be reached by boat or hiking trail. The National Park Service now manages the land, and hikers sometimes stumble across remnants, rusted machinery, moss-covered foundations, and bits of old glass scattered in the dirt. It feels frozen in time, as if the people left only yesterday. For the descendants of those families, the story isn't just history, it's personal. Every few years they hold reunions along the lake. Boats take them across to visit the cemeteries that remain, where gravestones rise out of the forest. It's a bittersweet ritual, flowers laid for relatives whose homes now lie somewhere beneath the water's edge. The government eventually built access roads to some of the old burial sites, but not all. Many families still have to go by boat, crossing the same waters that once covered their grandparents' homes. Over time, legends have grown around Fontana Lake. Some say that on foggy mornings, you can hear church bells ringing from under the water, a ghostly echo from the town of Judson. Others claim to have seen lights shimmering below the surface, lanterns, they say, from homes that no longer exist. Fishermen tell stories of hearing faint music or the sound of a train whistle, even though no tracks have run there in decades. Whether those tales are true or not, there's no denying the lake has an atmosphere unlike anywhere else in the Smokies. The water seems deeper than it should be, darker, like it's keeping secrets, and in a way it is. Beneath that still surface lies a world perfectly preserved in memory, a snapshot of Appalachian life sealed away forever. Standing on the dam today, it's hard not to feel a strange mix of awe and sadness. The structure itself is impressive, still the tallest dam east of the Rockies, stretching across the valley like a giant wall. From the top you can see for miles, but it's what lies beneath that lingers in the imagination. Somewhere down there are roads where children once walked, farms where families gathered for Sunday dinners, and the ruins of a way of life that ended the moment the floodgates closed. Visitors often say Fontana Lake feels too quiet. There are no bustling marinas or noisy beaches here, just long stretches of stillness broken by the sound of wind in the trees. Maybe that quiet is what gives it its ghostly charm. It's a lake that carries memory in its depths. Even now, when water levels drop unusually low, relics emerge, a rusted tractor, a fence post, or the faint trace of a foundation half buried in mud. Each one is a reminder that this wasn't always a lake, it was home. Fontana's story isn't one of malice or mystery in the supernatural sense. It's about progress, sacrifice, and loss. The dam brought power to thousands, helped win a war, and changed the landscape forever. But for the people who once lived in those valleys, it also took something that can't be measured in electricity or dollars, the roots of generations, now resting under hundreds of feet of water. When the sun sets over the Smokies and the light fades across the lake, it's easy to imagine the outlines of the lost towns down below. The church steeple of Proctor, the bridge at Judson, the trails that once led from farm to farm. The surface glimmers, calm and unbroken, but beneath it lies the silence of a world that time didn't erase, it just buried.